Anybody here up for a little great adventure? All right, come on. We're going to the Amazon jungles of Ecuador. Here we go. God, and I am not. I can only see a part of the picture he's painting. God is God and I am man, so I'll never understand it all, for only God is God. They had the highest homicide rate of any people group in history. They were reclusive, mysterious, as well as astonishingly violent. They had successfully warded off the government, the military, and progress itself, retreating deeper and deeper into the jungle with every outside contact. They lived as they had for centuries, walled in by the jungle. They were a Stone Age people alive and well in the 20th century. Neighboring tribes referred to them simply as the savages. They were the outlaws. They were young. They were smart. They had bright futures in many different fields. They were the movers and shakers of their time. They were adventurers. 5 men, passionate and obedient for the sake of the call of God. Nobody stood and applauded them, so they knew from the start this road would not lead to fame. All they really knew for sure was Jesus had called to them. He said, "Come follow me," and they came with reckless abandon. They came and they answered, "We will abandon it all for the sake of the call. No other reason at all but the sake of the call. Wholly devoted to live and to die for the sake of the call, the sake of the call." They were brave, they were spirited, they were pushing the boundaries of traditional views. They were innovators and pioneers of their time. They were adventurers, 5 women, passionate, obedient for the sake of the call of God. Wholly devoted to live and to die, not for the sake of a creed or a cause, not for a dream or a promise, simply because it is Jesus who calls, and if we believe, we'll obey So the team of Operation Alco was born, and time was of the essence. The oil companies were weary of struggling with the indigenous peoples who stood in the way of their oil. The government was embarrassed because they couldn't control their citizens, and the tribe was in jeopardy at their own hands due to intertribal warfare. No matter who struck first, extinction seemed inevitable. So in the fall of 1955, just before the flood season began, the missionary team realized they had a window of time. They stepped through it.
We were dreamers, boys on the wild frontier, new believers, nothing in the world to fear. We had discovered the treasure of the love and the grace of God, and it burned like a fire in our heart, and we would throw back our heads and run with passion through the fields of forgiveness and grace. We carry the eternal flame with an undying hope and a blazing conviction, and a truth that will never fade. We were glowing in the dark, children of the burning heart. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Children of the burning heart. Yeah, yeah.
They knew the risk, they knew the sacrifice, but they knew that somewhere, far removed from everything else, lived a group of people in darkness, people that had never been introduced to their Creator. No one had ever brought them the good news of God's love. They had to be told before it was too late. The missionary team felt this was the reason they were alive. They knew that others had gone before them unsuccessfully. It's no small thing to try and bridge the 20th century and the Stone Age, wrote Nate Saint. They knew they had a lot to lose. But he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. And so the day came, the moment they had fasted and prayed and hoped for. The overtures of friendship had been successful, and the missionaries made the first known peaceful contact between the feared Alcas and the outside world, complete with peanut butter sandwiches, insect repellent, and an airplane ride. Their moment had arrived.
Men of courage, with your message of peace, what is that look in your eyes? Why have you come to this faraway place? What is this story you would lay down your life to tell? What kind of love can this be? There is no greater love than this, and there is no greater gift that can ever be given than to be willing to die so another might live. And there is no greater love than this.
Imagine being 5 years old, a time when daddy is your hero. How do you tell a child the most tragic news of his young life?
Broken hearted from all you have lost, how can you sing through your tears? What is this music that can bear such a cost? What is this fire that grows stronger against the wind? What kind of flame can this be? And there is no greater love than this, and there is no greater gift that can ever be given than to be willing to die so another might live. And there is no greater love than this. This is the law that God showed the way. When He gave us His Son, so we could know His love forever beyond the gates of splendor. There is no greater love than this. There is no greater gift that can ever be given to be willing to die so another might live. There is no greater love. There is no greater love. There is no greater love than this. There is no greater love than this. There is no greater love.
What now? They were gone. But why? It seemed like such a waste. 5 young men, their whole lives ahead of them, their young families by their sides. Where was God when the spears went in? Where was God when the bodies were dumped in the river? Why? How? The questions flood, drowning all that you thought you knew. But this is not the end of the story. As is the case with God, sometimes what seems like a tragic end is really a miraculous beginning. One of the wives of the 5 martyrs and the sister of another were compelled to continue what was begun. Elizabeth Elliot and Rachel Saint had studied the Auca language with an Auca woman named Dayuma, who'd escaped from the tribe during a killing raid and was now living in a nearby village. Then one day, in an unprecedented act, 3 Auca women emerged from the jungle. They came with an invitation to the women. Come live with us and tell us of the man maker. Rachel, Elizabeth, and little Valerie Elliott took a step of faith and followed a trail never before walked by an outsider. One by one, the tribe responded to the good news. Little by little, the Bible was translated into their language. Rachel Saint lived out her entire life with the people she loved so dearly. At her funeral in 1994, the Waodani offered a second invitation for an outsider to live with them. A boy whose history was intertwined with theirs was asked to walk with them into the future. The original vision of Operation Auca 1956 came full circle as Nate Saint's son, Steve, uprooted his family and headed for the Amazon to join the Waodani as they followed God's trail. And now they are no longer the Auca, the savage. They call themselves simply the people, the Waodani.
My heart is restless as I wander through this jungle. The trees above refuse to let the sunlight through. And somewhere deep inside I hear the whispered longings They tell me I was made for more than this. A blinding flash of light falls down into the darkness. Slowly I notice strange new markings on the trail. The crimson drops are calling out to me, come and follow. I am the God who made you. Let me show you how to live. And I cry, I want to be a God follower. I want to go wherever He leads. I want to be a God follower. I want to walk the trail He's marked for me. And when I reach God's place, I will look into His face. And then I look for you. Will I find you there? Can you say with me, I want to be a God follower. I want to be a God follower. I want to go wherever He leads. I want to be a God follower. I want to walk the trail He's marked for me. I want to be a God follower. I want to go wherever He leads. I want to be a God follower. I want to walk the trail He's marked for me. More than anything, I want to be a God follower.
Night after night, I stand here just humbled by this whole experience, but there's probably not a part of the concert I enjoy or I'm more humbled by or more privileged to do than this moment right now when I get to introduce you to a man who's become a dear friend of mine and a man who I consider to be a mentor of mine in many ways. And it's a great privilege to get introduced to you, Mr. Steve Saint.
Thank you. It was just over a month ago that I was watching television on the anniversary of September 11th. The program I was watching dealt with the terrible trauma that is being faced by young children who lost parents in that terrible tragedy. You know, as I watched that program, I couldn't help but remember when I was a little boy, the night that my mom took me into her room to tell me that my dad had been killed and that he would never be able to come home and live with us again. And that could have been my tragedy, except that my mom was a woman of faith, and she went on to explain to me that she was sure that even this terrible thing that was happening to us was part of God's plan, and that she believed someday we would know that for sure. And since then, I've found out for myself that God never wastes a hurt if we'll let Him write His story with our lives. And today I know that both of those are true, because the very people who brutally killed my dad and Roger and Pete and Ed and Jim are like family to me. And one of those very men who speared my dad to death and then threw his body into the river to be eaten by the fish and turtles. Just a couple years later, when I went in to live with the people and my Aunt Rachel, that man made it clear to me that he wanted me to be like his own son. And when he would take his boys out into the jungles to teach them to hunt with a blowgun and to spear larger animals and to get fish in the river, he taught me the same thing so that I could go on living there with him and his people. 8 years ago, when members of the tribe came to me after we buried my Aunt Rachel and told me that they wanted me to come back again with my family and live with them like I had as a young boy. That same man adopted my wife, Ginny, and our 4 children.